headlines at 11. Prince Harry is calling for a fresh police investigation and a parliamentary inquiry into phone hacking. That's after his successful battle with the Mirror Group newspapers. The Duke of Sussex was awarded more than £140,000 in damages after the High Court ruled that editors and executives knew about extensive phone hacking between 2006 and 2011. The judge also accepted that Piers Morgan knew that journalists were involved in phone hacking while he worked at the Daily Mirror. But the former editor claims he has never hacked a phone or told anyone else to hack a phone.
As for him saying this is a good day for truth, the Duke has been repeatedly exposed in recent years as someone who wouldn't know the truth if it slapped him around his California tanned face. He demands accountability for the press, but refuses to accept any for himself for smearing the royal family, his own family, as a bunch of callous racists without producing a shred of proof to support those disgraceful claims.
The death of Hollywood actor Matthew Perry has been ruled an accident from the effects of ketamine. Medical officials in Los Angeles have confirmed tonight that drowning was also a factor in his death. Police were called to the sitcom star's home in LA in October, where he was found unresponsive in his pool. He died at the age of 54. 3 Israeli hostages have been killed by mistake after troops opened fire during combat in Gaza. The military there say that 3 kidnapped men had been misidentified as a threat. In a statement, the IDF said that it had deep remorse for the tragic incident and that it was under investigation. Meanwhile, Israel has said it will allow up to 200 trucks of aid per day into Gaza through Karem Shalom crossing, a move that's been praised by the Foreign Secretary, David Cameron. And the grandmother of a British teenager who was believed to have been abducted 6 years ago, has said she cannot express how relieved she is that he's been found safe and well. Alex Batty, now 17 years old, is expected to fly back to the UK over the weekend. He disappeared with his mother and grandfather in 2017 after going on family holiday to Spain. Detectives believe Alex was taken by his mother to live an alternative lifestyle in a spiritual community abroad. Well, that's it from me. For more, you can find us on your TV, in your car, on digital radio and on our website. This is GB News.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle. Tonight I'm joined by pro-life comedian Nicholas DeSanto and pro-slaughter comedian Lewis Schaefer. How are you both?
I accept that.
Well, I think it's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slaughter of red meat.
Certainly red meat.
For him and for me, unborn babies.
You are a carnivore in the true sense of the word.
But you know what? I'm also, my fantasy is death and murder and killing. Anyway, well, I shouldn't say that because I know I come across as a nice guy, but I just want death.
No. You are a horror show, if I'm honest.
I just said that. You're supposed to disagree.
Oh, OK. No, you're a lovely human being. OK, we're going to start by looking through the front pages. So the Daily Mail leading with half-price Christmas. They're worried about sales in the high street. Telegraph has Sadiq Khan blocks cars for Ukraine scheme. We'll be getting to that in a moment. The Times has rise of the month-long wait just to see your GP. That's a familiar story if ever I saw it. The Guardian, great day for truth. Prince Harry wins hacking case. And the Mirror has question of sport axed. That favourite is to be axed after 53 years. And Daily Star, what a spuddy outrage. Something to do with Mr. Potato Head. Those were your front pages. Right, we're going to begin with Saturday's Guardian. Lewis, you've got this. What are they leading with?
A great day for truth. Prince Harry wins hacking case. And Prince Harry, who was, he's related to some other, I think he's in the royal family or something.
Yeah, he's a celebrity here.
He's
Lewis,
a celebrity here.
Yeah.
I mean, he's changing his name. He's no longer going to be a prince. He's going to be called Harry Markle. That's his new name.
Is that what he's going to do?
That's his, yeah.
Well, Prince did that many years ago.
Yeah,
changed
well, why
his name
not?
to a symbol.
And Meghan Markle is going to change her, is going to marry B.B. King, so she could change her name.
Is that right? Okay.
The Princess Markle King.
That would be impressive. Now, what's going on? Now, I know that Prince Harry took the Mirror Group to court over allegations of hacking.
Yeah,
the outcome, it's gone his way.
It's gone his way, and he's been awarded £140,000.
Well, he needs the money.
Well, he does. He might need the money. Who's going to give him money?
Podcast didn't go too well.
You don't. You know what it is. You don't know who has money, who doesn't have money.
Well, they got that big Netflix show, didn't they? So
They do, and eventually that runs out. There's a big mansion that they're paying for. The gas and electric must be expensive. But the fact is that he won a lot of the cases, a lot of the incidents that he cited. I think 33 out of 23 out of 33 or 33 out of 4, whatever it was a number, but it wasn't all of them. So some people are spinning it like he was wrong about some of the things, but basically they followed him around, they hassled him.
Well, I mean, it's not just about him, is it? I thought this case was about hacking more broadly. There are some concerns, though, Nicholas, about press freedom. You know, I think everyone agrees that hacking is wrong. It's also illegal, so you just have to apply the law. But there is a concern that this kind of move against the papers is really about silencing criticism of the wealthy and powerful. Do you think that's part of it?
It could be part of it. I mean, it's quite telling that Prince Harry, despite scoring this victory, is not, as it seems, he's not going to gather a lot of sympathy for that.
Right.
Because ultimately people associate him with his own campaigns against the royal family, and as Piers Morgan put it, I mean, it's quite telling that you win such a victory against tabloids, which are not internationally or even domestically always very popular, but still people are going to say, well, look what you did to the rest of your royal family.
Yeah, why is it that, that he's reached a point where he is so unpopular? What do you think is going on there? I mean, I know your reason, Lewis, you don't like the royals full stop, but it's his attack on the royals that people take particular objection to, isn't it?
I think the reason that people don't like him is for the same old reason. He's a striver. He wants more. And he married somebody who wants more. And he doesn't want to be the second in charge. And every single day that he lives, they're having more and more kids. He's like going down in the pecking order. And he wants relevance. He wants to be a man. He's a bit dim. He strikes me as, I shouldn't say that. But he wants to have relevance. And in this country, he's supposed to know his place. And Meghan Markle was supposed to know her place. And his place was just to sit there and have his arms folded and be nice.
But you don't like the royals anyway. You think the royal family should be abolished full stop?
I think they should be. I think it's one of the worst things about this country.
But that's because you're an American.
Well, I'm an American. The reason I think it's the worst thing is because I can see it from an outsider's point of view. It basically crushes the idea of meritocracy amongst people. It means there's the top person in this country is unelected.
Maybe on a philosophical level I would agree with, because me and Louis are struggling to find some grounds for disagreement, because we're afraid producers won't invite us together because we agree on
I
so
want
many
to see you
issues.
squabble more.
Philosophically speaking, maybe I agree that maybe monarchy is a bit outdated, but sadly the sad state of affairs in this country and in the West is that there's nothing else for the British people to cling on as part of their identity, because everything else has been dismantled, because the empire was not carbon neutral, and the Industrial Revolution was not carbon neutral, and this guy was sexist, and that guy had slaves, and that other guy didn't help his wife in the kitchen. So ultimately we have the monarchy, and loyalty is also important. So when he went after his family without a shred of evidence, as Piers Morgan again reiterated tonight, people see that a war hero who served in Afghanistan turned into some beta male person under the thumb of his wife.
Okay,
this is where he's wrong. Can I just say one?
Well, very quickly, Lewis, because we do have to move on.
You're wrong, because if the monarchy was what you said it was, the only thing we have left, that would be fine. But it's not. The monarchy is completely taken over by the World Economic Forum. They're part of Team World.
Oh, for goodness sake. I'm moving on now. Okay, I've had enough.
Sorry about that.
He spoke too long. It's typical of you, Lewis. We're going on to Saturday's Telegraph now. Nicholas, what are the Telegraph leading with?
Well, before going to what they are leading with, I want to pay attention to this little cartoon at the bottom by the inimitable one and only Matt. It says, the kid says, in the nativity play, the kid is telling his mom, in the nativity play this year, I'm playing the journalist who hacked into the phones of the three kings, the wise kings.
Yeah.
Presumably, links nicely to the story we were just discussing, and presumably they hacked into the wise kings' phones to see their carbon footprint as they, did that arduous journey. But the title we've chosen is Sadiq Khan blocks cars for Ukraine scheme.
Yes.
This is when obsession and, religious-like devotion to envirofanaticism takes a bizarre turn.
Well, what was the idea here?
The idea is,
if your car is not ULEZ compatible, you can
scrap it.
You can scrap it, and you will be rewarded for that.
For £2,000
yes.
In some cases.
Yeah.
Cars which qualify, of course. Now, the Vitaly Klitschko, famous mayor of Kiev, says we need a lot of 4x4s who are perfectly good cars. Maybe you allow Londoners to donate that to us, and there are other British associations who are already doing that. But in this case, Sadiq Khan, the Labour mayor of London, says no. No, and we were struggling to see why he says no, and no wonder title is Khan's decision to block cars for Ukraine scheme has been described as gobsmacking, as baffling. He says the decision to donate them does not meet the legal threshold that requires the ULEZ scrappage scheme to benefit Londoners. It's as if he needs to reach a certain number of cars to be scrapped.
Yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, what do you think, Lewis? What do you think the reason for saying no?
We just were discussing this beforehand. I think the reason he's saying no is because it's possibly polluting, and he believes this whole pollution thing and this carbon neutral thing, this whole carbon
thing. I think a country at war really cares about whether its vehicles are polluting.
He'd rather see Ukrainians die than pollute the air above Ukraine.
That's what's insane. Yes, the answer is Ukraine doesn't care about these cars sputtering, yes. But Sadiq Khan, because he's so far up the butt of the eco warriors.
Well, we don't know because no reason is given. Well, a reason is given, but it's a bit wishy-washy.
Scheme was designed to ensure that these vehicles, most polluting vehicles, are permanently removed from London's roads. As if these cars, by the way, once they go to Ukraine, they're going to be painted in camouflage with bazookas or mortar launchers.
That's very bad for the environment.
It's very unlikely for these cars to make their way back into the London streets after the war is over.
OK, well, let's move on to the Times now. Lewis, so they are leading with an NHS story, one of our favourites.
Well, how many stories are these? Every single week there's another one of these stories. Rise of the month-long wait just to see your GP.
Something's going wrong. I mean, I've had limited experience with GPs over the past year, but when I have, it's been very, very difficult to... You have to phone at just the right time in the morning to get an appointment. There's always a big wait. A lot of GP surgeries are now triaging patients. You get the receptionist having to ask you about your symptoms, which can be very embarrassing. What is going on with the NHS, particularly with GPs?
OK, number one, my guess is that people are calling preemptively because they know they're going to be sick and they know they're not going to be able to get an appointment. So they think, you know what, maybe I might get cancer next month.
Don't give them ideas, though.
That's a good idea. Yeah, so you get an appointment booked in for a few months down the line. Something's going to go wrong.
Something's going to go wrong. You'll get diabetes, you'll get cancer, something's going to happen. There are 4.9 million appointments, 28 days after 28 days, right? There are only 60-something million people in the country, 14.9. How sick are the people?
We are a sickly nation.
Exactly, because you're on a vegan, plant-based diet, which you promote, Andrew.
I don't promote it. I say eat whatever you want.
No, don't eat. These people shouldn't eat whatever they want. That's why they're so sick. Look at Louis Schaefer. Look at how great I look. All
Nicholas,
meat.
Do you have a vegan diet? I don't imagine that you do.
No, I have a vegetarian wife with strong vegan sympathies, and that's how I lost a lot of Louis' respect, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure, yes.
Yeah, I'm not vegan or vegetarian myself.
Well, Louis takes a very militant view of this, and that we're all sick because we don't eat, raw cows or whatever.
Well, I just had a full body scan that, which basically said that I'm above average in bone density compared against athletes who take this test. It's got a DEXA scan.
Well, if any ladies are watching,
I'm going to take my shirt off.
Don't take your shirt off, Lewis. But, I'm sure bone density is the thing that most women seek.
At the end of the day,
different levels.
When all the chickens have been plucked, what this story is about is basically a plea from the Times to let in more immigrants.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It says it right here. It says they need more fully qualified
Well, it's
doctors.
true. I mean, in a sense, the NHS is struggling to recruit the sufficient numbers of qualified people that it
where
requires.
are they going to get
Well, we
people
need
from?
to provide homegrown, home-educated doctors and nurses, and not just go. And by that, we do a disservice to our own nation. Also, we deplete the resources of those other countries who desperately
That is
need
true.
their...
Okay, well, let's move on to the Mail now. This is a story about shopping. Nicholas.
Half-price Christmas bonanza for bargain hunters as struggling retailers launch sales. Now, this is an old story in terms of, High Street dying, and a lot of, even on the iconic, world-famous Oxford Street, a lot of complaints because all these American-style candy shops, no disrespect, but those shops are really awful, have been emerging. And those who are still in the market, even big names like House of Fraser and John Lewis and so on, they're offering, maybe in a panic move, they're offering substantial sales because apparently people's Christmas shopping has fallen short of expectation.
Well, what do we expect? Cost of living crisis, Lewis, isn't that?
Yeah, well, it's either one or the other. It's either half-price Christmas, or they're complaining that prices are going through the roof because there's incredible demand. You never see an article that says things are just the same as last year and every year.
Well, it wouldn't be very interesting, particularly for the front pages.
So this is like basically panic, but
Just
not
panic.
really panic.
We like a bit of panic on the show, but those are the front pages dealt with. Please don't go anywhere, though, because coming up in part 2, we'll find out why Just Stop Oil have been stopped, while Stop and Search is still going. See you in 2 minutes.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Akweer, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Ah! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. It's your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, still here with Lewis Schaefer and Nicholas DeSanto. We're going to continue with the stories. Let's move to The Guardian now. A climate activist has been jailed for 6 months after pleading guilty. Nicholas, what happened?
Just Stop Oil activist jailed for 6 months for taking part in a slow march. So this is Stephen Gingle, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
So the Gingle or Gingell?
Probably.
Or Gingell.
A 57-year-old father from Manchester, and he participated in this slow march in Holloway Road.
What does that mean? Disrupting the traffic,
exactly.
Basically, yeah.
Obviously, not the worst thing they've done, but now we have this relatively new law called Public Order Act, and under Section 7 of this, which is the controversial part, the police have made the most number of arrests. Basically, over the arch of a few months, they have made 630 arrests, and almost half of them, or more than half of them, were due to this Public Order Act. Now, the controversy is, and again, we have the lefties to thank for, because when they open the floodgates of mass immigration, some people react and the government intervenes, and then we have hate speech laws and censorship and surveillance and all that. And when they do all these disruptive, extremely unpopular protests by defacing monuments or throwing tomato ketchup or whatever paint at works of art, or stopping people consistently from going about their work, what happens? Public Order Act comes in. And now critics, not just environmentalists, but others say, look, this law has been formulated in a way that essentially it says you cannot stop infrastructure, including roads, from functioning or losing their function by any degree, which means essentially if the government wanted, they could interpret it in a way that you can't walk on the street.
Well, that's the point,
any
isn't
sort
it?
of protest.
All of these laws that are being enacted are effectively kind of authoritarian, aren't they, Lewis? I mean, the point is that we all get sick of Just Stop Oil and the way that they behave, you know, but punish criminality. Don't expand the law so that you can arrest people for just any reason.
But you could always arrest anybody for any reason. You don't need a million laws. There are so many laws on the books. There's probably a law for...
Well, there's too many, right?
You know what? It's not too many. It's too many if they're enforced. I think you missed the point of this story. This story is a horrific story.
Why?
Because the guy who was put in jail, his name...
We've had this, Stephen Gingle.
Yeah, 57 years old.
So what's that got to do with anything?
He's old. He's an old white guy.
We don't know his ethnicity.
Well, we pretty much do know. He's an old white guy, and they're putting an old white man in jail. They're not putting anybody sexable. Greta Thunberg is not being put in jail. Nobody young.
I don't think that's what's happened here,
I think
Lewis.
it is. Why did they pick to make... This is the first guy. Why did they pick him?
You know what? I mean, they should really... If I was to have my way, I'd have the ones locked up who threw paint at the painting.
Yeah, but they
or
were
tomato ketchup or whatever it was.
But they were young, beautiful people. You don't... Maybe...
So you're saying this is prejudice? This is institutionalized...
white man, old man prejudice.
Are you not reading in your own concerns?
No, it's not. I mean, if they had arrested, maybe if there were 30 people arrested...
And we were concerned about the freedom of speech implications of this law.
Silly us. Anyway, we're going to move on to The Guardian now. HMIC finds forces cannot explain disproportional stops of black people. So the stop and search story rolling on, Lewis.
Yeah, well, there's always been stop and search historically. I know you probably don't think there was, but there always was. But this is Her Majesty's Inspectorate of the Consular. Police watchdog refuses to back use of stop and search without suspicion. So they've been stopping thousands and thousands of people without suspicion. And it happens to be they're stopping a lot of black people, like 13 times more likely to stop black people. And even me, who was like, I'm in favor of draconian measures, I think it's wrong.
So this is interesting because critics are saying that stop and search causes more harm than good.
Yeah.
But then knife crime appears to have risen as stop and search has gone down, hasn't it? Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not. And statistically speaking, it's mostly black people stabbing each other. If London a couple of years ago overtook New York in terms of the murders, that's mostly down to these stabbings. And the perpetrators and the victims are black. So this reminds me of, just to add the funny to this very solemn, somber story, you know, one of Dave Chappelle's very famous gags, talking about and that's the key sentence also mentioned here, you fit a description. So Dave Chappelle says, I wouldn't go to the police station to bail my friend out because they would say, while you're here, stay here, because you fit a description.
Right. And
this is a problem of the black community. So to some extent, it is predictable.
But I mean, you can imagine that if, you are a law-abiding young black man in London who gets pulled aside by the police, that is going to really annoy you, and justifiably so. But as Nicholas points out, Lewis, there is a problem because young black men are disproportionately represented in violent crime statistics. At the same time, they are also disproportionately the victims.
Right.
So does it not serve that community as well to implement?
It serves it, but ever so slightly, because it says out of every 100 stop and search, only 3 of the people are found to have committed some other illegal action. So that's not even 10% of the people. So it's a very low level. The truth is, people do bad things, white and black. I'm defending black people. This goes against my trope. But it's like in New York. They did this in New York, where people were jumping over the turnstiles. Yes. Which is an illegal act. So they would arrest somebody for doing an illegal act. And when they arrested them, they found out that a large percentage of them had warrants issued on them, had guns on them, had knives. Right. They're just stopping innocent people hoping to find something.
You don't know if it is innocent or not until you find a knife on them.
Yeah, but that's true. I mean, it feels like pre-crime.
Presumed innocent.
It's presuming...
A guy who breaks the law, if they stopped people for breaking legitimate laws...
And they just found that they had been responsible for other laws as well.
Yes, that's one thing. But
well, that's an interesting approach, I suppose.
That's the New York approach.
OK, well, this next from The Guardian, the president of COP28 Climate Summit. What's this about, Nicholas? What's going on?
So COP, or standing for Conference of the Parties, COP28 president says his firm will keep investing in oil. So just on Wednesday, this massive summit of world leaders and companies and activists and different parties, as the P in COP stands for party, gathered in Dubai to work and deliberate on the outcome, or towards basically tackling the effects of climate change. Okay, this all started in earnest from Paris Agreement in 2015. And of course, it was a massive event. There were so many hopes, and eventually they came up with this agreement described as historic and groundbreaking by also John Kerry, U.S. Special Envoy on the issue, and so on, because it encourages everyone to transition from fossil fuels. To transition away from fossil.
They want to get to net zero by 2050.
Yeah, they want to get to net zero by 2050, which is debatable and controversial, but critically, they want to keep the so-called 1.5 degree Celsius.
But what is the point?
Alive.
The point is the guy is an oil producer, and he's at a conference which is trying to get rid of oil. Yes. And he's saying maybe we shouldn't get rid of it so fast.
Well, they're saying they're going to have to retain some fossil fuels even by their 2050 target.
The irony was not lost on people, because UAE depends on oil, and obviously he has been credited as a very good president because he could sort of basically play the bridge between those developing countries who are not so happy with this and those oil-dependent countries whose only... Basically, the green agenda, what is it about? Let's take away from Arabs their only source of sustenance and well-being. What can go wrong with that? If you think Arabs are angry now, imagine what will happen.
Do you know what? That's absolutely brilliant.
OK, Lewis.
I had not thought of that.
Let's move on now. Tony Blair back in the news again in The Times. What's going on here? In The Times, Tony Blair accepted a £1 million donation before fox hunt ban. According to Peter Mandelson. According to Peter Mandelson. And actually, people knew about this before. I think it was listed in the documents or something. It wasn't like... It wasn't... I think the point here is, look, everyone knows that political parties receive these big donations from groups. Yeah. The key thing is whether those donations are influencing decision-making, policy-making. Yeah. And what Peter Mandelson said here is that this got pretty transactional. That was the phrase that he used. Mm-hmm. So that is bad. But the truth is, I think, if I remember correctly, at the time, Labour was against fox hunting because they could care less about the people in the countryside. So they were against it. So is it kind of criminal to pay somebody money to go in the direction you want them to go? I think it is. Well, I don't know if it's criminal or not. If it's public? But ethical? I mean, Nicholas, I think this is a problem. If you change your manifesto on the basis of who gives you the most money, are you really wedded to your principles at all?
Exactly. As Peter Mandelson says they overdid this. They put it in their manifesto.
But they were going to do it anyway.
Well, I'm not.
We don't know. I mean, he's implying they would.
Yeah, well,
he said they overdid it.
He said they overdid it. Yes.
He said they overdid it, so they were going to do it anyway. You get £1 million. That's how politics work.
Well,
people donate.
Sounds like cash and carry politics.
In that case, the campaigners were on a loss.
Do you know what?
They shouldn't have. They should have kept their money.
You see, Lewis, you should know about this because in America it's even worse. In America, you have these big corporations donating money to the Republicans and the Democrats because whoever gets in, they want to have some kind of influence in government.
But at least if it's open, that's better. And this was open. Here's the difference between corruption. They're trying to paint this as corruption. Corruption in an underdeveloped country is paying somebody to do their job. In a developed country, it's paying somebody not to do their job. And you're saying that Tony Blair was given money to not do. No, Tony Blair was given money. He was going to do it anyway.
OK. Well, Tony Blair, to be fair, has not commented on Peter Mandelson's claim. We should make that clear. That is the end of Part 2. Join us in Part 3 when we'll be discussing NatWest's independent review, the latest on diversity, equity and inclusion, and the political impact of Chicken Run. Don't go anywhere.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. The Telegraph now. Nigel Farage has described the latest findings of a review into Coote's decision to close his bank account as a work of fiction, Nicholas.
NatWest debanking findings, a work of fiction, says Nigel Farage. So all of us are familiar with the story when Nigel Farage lost his bank account with Cootes, which is a subsidiary of NatWest. And then they have launched, obviously it was a big national story because, as Farage rightly pointed out, if they can do this to me, a very prominent figure in British politics, imagine how and what they can do.
Well, worse than that, I mean, he had a subject access request which confirmed that this was politically motivated. There were internal documents that pointed to that. But this finding has suggested that actually this isn't the case.
Yeah,
so what's going on?
Hence a work of fiction. So I don't know how they have come up to this. They have examined a certain number of 84 cases, or actually 84 customers and 65 cases of closure.
Yes.
And they have found out that in none of these, this independent company that has been put in charge to carry out this investigation has basically found that in none of these cases, anybody's account has been shut down for political reasons.
Well, Nigel Farage is rightly sceptical about it. I mean, the part of the problem with this, Lewis, surely, is that a lot of the times when this kind of thing goes on, they're not going to leave a paper trail. They're not going to leave these notes saying, oh, let's blitz his account because he votes the wrong way. With Nigel Farage, slightly different because he's a public figure, and you can imagine them wanting to talk more and more about it. But it's quite obvious, isn't it, that more and more of these banks and corporations are implementing policies on a political basis?
Well, totally true, but it's not just that. The banks are bad, but who do they hire to do this independent to get this independent report?
Well, someone who's independent, presumably.
Presumably, but it's not, because I've dealt with these kind of situations, like the council in Southwark hires a law firm that does business with other councils, and they want more work. So this law firm, Fox and whatever it is, they're looking for more work. They're not going to bite the hand.
Well, they would say that they did this impartially, and they just.
It would reflect poorly on them because they haven't even got the same documents that was presented to Farage.
What's strange is that those documents haven't featured in this report. I mean, that's quite damning, isn't it?
This is one of those things that's horrible about. It's a great country. Louis Schaefer lives in this country. My kids live in this country. But the fact is they hire these independent reporter to get an independent report, and the guys, it's not independent, and you can't trust them.
You should get you to do it. You would be.
There shouldn't be anything. There should be freedom of information requests, and there should be lawsuits, and you should just go straight to court.
Okay, well, there we go. So, Louis Litigious Schaefer there with his
and there should be the death penalty.
The death penalty. Thanks for that, Lewis. Okay, the Telegraph now and the Commons Culture Select Committee. What's this story about?
Yeah, new BBC chairman lacks the strength to stand up to the bosses, says MPs, and it's sort of.
This is Samir Shah, who's been appointed.
He's been appointed the head of the BBC, and the other guy was named Sharp, whatever the guy's name, Richard Sharp, and this is the Parliament. Basically approving of the new BBC, sort of like layers of independence. But the truth is, the BBC guy is a point.
Well, we don't know. To be fair, he's just been appointed chairman. We don't know. it seems a bit premature, doesn't it, to start making judgments about his performance?
It isn't, because they asked him questions. They said, "What do you think about this?" And he said, "I can't say." So how do you? Yeah, he's basically. They're saying he's basically being a worm, but he's maybe not being a worm. He's just.
Well, I just think it's all a bit early to say. We don't know. We don't know how he's going to.
It is. You try to find out what the guy. The fact is, it's the state.
Well,
it's the state media company.
He has suggested that Gary Lineker may have breached BBC guidelines.
The whole world agrees on that.
Well, right, okay, but he's saying something at least, But Nicholas, is it not fair that we should give him some time first?
Yes and no, because he has been given some time in this interview, and these MPs of the Culture Select Committee have been quite disappointed to say, quote, he's been unwilling to express a view on important issues such as board-level interference and political impartiality. So if you go to this interview and you know what kind of questions you're going to be asked, and you're reluctant to give them an idea of what you think on such cornerstone issues.
Well, okay, fair enough. Well, we'll see how that develops. We're going to move on to the Times now, and women in law, Nicholas.
Women still struggle to get seat at top table of law firms. So again.
Well, that's right, isn't it? That there are fewer top lawyers in the country are female, and that's.
But the question is, whose fault is that? The patriarchy, or maybe choices and decisions? So we live in this era of equity instead of equality, and equality of opportunities. Equality of outcome is more important for the left and the woke rather than equality of opportunity.
So you put this down to a woke idea.
Exactly. So who is to say that women are not sitting at the top level? We were talking about law firms and the big law firms and the so-called top tier or full equity partners. These are partners on top of big law firms in London especially, where they have equity, which means they are also owners or part owners of the firms, as opposed to salaried employee solicitors or lawyers.
And the point is, being a top lawyer is such a time-consuming thing. You don't have time for your family, your friends. I know about the law thing because my son was thinking about going to law school.
So what are you saying, Lewis, that women are just choosing not to pursue careers
Probably
in law?
that. I would say that's what it is. It's
either that or there is sexism within the appointment procedure.
Well, they want to assume that there's sexism in the appointment position. But the truth is there's so much work that needs to be done to be a lawyer, especially from America. They work 84 hours a week.
What are you saying, that women are lazy?
I'm saying that women would rather, if they have kids, they'd rather be home. More often, they'd rather be home with their kids.
The irony is that, and Jordan Peterson says this as well, the irony is that if you look at the countries that give the highest level of choice to women, like Scandinavian countries, ironically, women tend to go more into the so-called traditional or womanly jobs, such as nursing or teaching or taking care of their kids. And nowadays, Harvard has been in the vortex of this whole scandal over the anti-Semitic chants and genocide and all that, and one or two of their presidents have had to resign. Interestingly enough, the first ever president of Harvard University who had to resign was a gentleman named Lawrence Summers, who had to resign because he dared to say, look, if in some tough science or pure scientific branches, programs, we don't have enough women or they are not equal, it's because of choice.
Careful, are we going to have to resign?
I think you might, Lewis. I think we need more women on this panel. Anyway, well, particularly when you're on. OK, the
but
Telegraph
I'm not feminine
now.
enough.
Revelations about Aviva. Lewis, we covered this last night, but you had quite a few things to say about Aviva.
Yeah,
What's the development here?
Well, the development is that people who are working in the city where Aviva is, I don't know whether even they're headquartered. They're headquartered in Norwich because
this is an insurance company.
It's an insurance company, which I have a policy. Is the woman who was head of the insurance policy? She said that anytime a white man is up for a big position, she wants to know about it.
This was Amanda Blanc, the chief executive of Aviva. She had to sign off, effectively, any appointment of a white male.
And I said last night that she should be fired from her job because it's so racist, and the company should be boycotted. And I'm not sure that I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to change my mind on that. But
you were so strident last night.
I was strident.
And now you're saying you were wrong.
I was wrong because it's a private company. If I think it's a private company, and she's just an employee. She's not the head. She's the CEO.
Lewis, if you're going to do this kind of about face from one night to the next, how can anyone trust any of your opinions?
They can't trust anything that I say. I don't trust what I say. You shouldn't trust anything that anybody says. You've got to trust your own thing.
That's the only sensible thing you've said.
I think that she should not be fired.
Okay. Today, but tomorrow you'll probably say she should be.
No, because I think the company should be boycotted and put out of business so that 22,000 employees lose their jobs, and that's too much.
Okay, you're stopping yourself now. Well, that's fine. Nicholas, what do you make of all this?
Does that make sense,
This
Nicholas?
complements our previous story very well. It's not about equality of opportunity. It's not even about women. Sometimes it's just about all-out war on men, and especially white men. And this is quite telling. And of course, she ignores a lot of other, because when you forget about the color of skin and gender, the socioeconomic factors come in. And no less than Mr. Paul Johnson, director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, funnily and poignantly once said, choosing your parents is becoming ever more important. And obviously you can't choose your parents, but the irony, the point is that it's not about being white or male or female in this business, among other ones. It's about what background you come from, so that you can.
Why can't it just be a meritocracy? Why can't it just be who is the best for the job?
It's all about equality of outcome.
But if I were a white person, I wouldn't want to give any money to Aviva because they wouldn't hire me. They wouldn't hire my son. No. If I was a white person, they wouldn't hire my brother.
They might do.
Why would anyone in their right mind who is, and you know something? If they didn't do this with black people, I'm sure white people would go, I don't like the way they treat black people. This is a racist I'm not saying it's a racist company, but
you just said it was a racist company.
Did I say that?
Yeah. So, no, you're saying this policy was racist?
This policy is racist.
Right, but it's not a racist company.
Well...
but she should be fired and she shouldn't be fired.
But I'm saying it's a racist policy, and if a company has racist policies, that means you should not do business with companies.
I think that's fair enough.
People should vote
we got there in the end.
their wallets.
They should vote with their
If
wallet.
you do one right thing, buy Louis Schaefer's calendar and cancel your Aviva.
Yes,
that is
my
bad
calendar.
advice.
Buy my calendar.
OK, we're going to finish this section with the Daily Mail now. A chicken run story. I saw Chicken Run when it first came out. This is the sequel, though, Nicholas, right?
This is the sequel, Dawn of the Nuggets.
Dawn of the Nuggets.
10-year-olds watching Chicken Run 2 or Dawn of the Nuggets insist it won't make them give up chicken nuggets, despite vegan activists claiming the film would turn audiences
but apparently
meat.
the plot of this is about chickens locked up who are going to be turned into nuggets.
And most of them do. Apparently some of them break away.
But they escape. There's an escape scene. So this is, I mean, Lewis, how could kids watch this and think, oh, I want to eat these delightful, cute plasticine chickens?
Well, it's interesting. When I was a child, there was a program which had a character who was called Lamb Chops.
Yes.
And it was a lamb, a cute little lamb called Lamb Chops, which is what you do to a lamb, you kill it.
Doesn't this make you upset? I mean, you're a big carnivore. It's like, you know, there's a bacon product where there's a pig, cartoon pig, selling it on the like a mascot. And you think, I don't trust that pig. Why is that pig telling you to eat other pigs? I mean, what kind of psychopathic porcine monster is this?
Well, do you want to know something? That's the way the Western world is. It's loaded with self-hate. Pigs hate themselves. We hate the Western world. We hate our own country.
Yeah, pigs who sell bacon are like, you know, men who sell out fellow men to suck up to feminists. You know, we all have them in our workplace.
Is that what it is? OK, interesting. Chicken Run 2.
I didn't say that.
I'm glad we got there. Anyway, no, you didn't say that, Lewis. That one wasn't your fault for once. But coming up in the final section, we're going to be discussing the luckiest gardener in the world, how Christmas veggies are bad for the planet, and why the Black Death led to our love of junk food. Don't go anywhere.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. The Sun now, and a story about handbags, Lewis.
Yeah, billionaire Hermes boss adopting his 51-year-old gardener to leave him $5 billion handbag fortune after row with family.
Oh, that's brutal. So this is a company called, you say it's Hermes. I thought it was Hermes.
No, I don't think, it's not Hermes.
Is this like you Americans with herbal tea?
Well,
when it should be herbal tea?
Here's Louis Schaefer at Twitter.
And let him know. Okay, so he's basically this guy who's got this massive multi-million-dollar corporation. He's left it all to a gardener.
To a gardener who's Moroccan origin. He's got the Moroccan guy has a Spanish wife and kids, and he's been fooling around or something. There must be some kind of gay stuff going on. It's very similar.
You don't know that, Lewis. Don't just assume there's some sort of gay stuff.
I'm assuming it's probably very similar to the way I treat you, hoping to get...
You want my legacy?
I want to be your adopted child.
Well, you're already in my will, so don't worry about that.
And he's going to get $4.5 billion. Billion.
What a lucky gardener, Nicholas.
It's a fascinating story. It reminds me of a 2019 movie called Knives Out with Daniel Craig. And I remember that movie very well because Daniel Craig plays an American detective from the South with a Texan accent, right? So it's the story of a very famous, very successful author who has a feud going on. He doesn't like any of his family, so he bequeaths all his legacy to his carer.
Yes, that's right.
Again, an American or South American immigrant.
I think this happens a lot, Nicholas. I think a lot of people, sometimes rich people, they get annoyed, they say, I'll leave it to the local cattery, you know, as a way to get revenge on the family. I think that's a reasonable thing.
Yeah, it should be illegal.
Illegal?
Actually,
you can do what you want with your money, can't you?
No, I don't think you should, because you have kids, and the kids should get them. You had to put up with that.
Are you going to leave your money to your favourite child and then cut the other one out?
No, because I alternate who my favourite child is.
You do, don't you?
I don't like any of them.
Do you have a gardener?
And I don't have a gardener. And you say it's so easy to get $4.5 billion. Who knows what this guy had to do to get the $4.5 billion?
Wow.
He had to have sex with an 80-year-old. I mean, to us gay guys, it means nothing. It means nothing to maybe cuddle an 80-year-old guy, because we like guys. But if you don't like guys, cuddling an 80-year-old guy...
That's a lot. So he earned his money, is what you're suggesting?
Probably earned.
We don't know how he got that money. Let's not speculate. OK, let's move on to the Daily Mail now. The Black Death. What a lovely, upbeat story. What's this about, Nicholas?
Is this?
Yeah, I think it still says Lewis.
I'll tell.
Oh, no, Lewis has got this one. Sorry, I apologise.
I'll tell it.
Yeah, you tell it, Lewis.
It's love junk food, blame the Black Death. Scientists claim plague that killed 60% of Europeans changed our mouth bacteria. This is one of those stories.
What do you mean, one of those stories?
It's one of those stories that is boundless in the emptiness of fact.
You mean it's just useless?
It's totally useless.
I mean, what are they saying? That basically the Black Death generated the conditions whereby we developed an appetite for McDonald's? How does this work?
Yes, it's saying, but it says basically is modern microbiomes in the mouth, right, are linked to a wide range of chronic diseases, including obesity, cardiovascular disease, and poor mental health.
Yeah, but it's got nothing to do with Black Death.
But it does, because it says the survivors of the second plague pandemic earned higher incomes and afforded higher calorie foods, right? So that they don't have the same germs that the people who died from it. And because they were able to eat different foods, which are higher in fiber or whatever, it's total bull.
This is a non-story, as you would put it. Nicholas, would you agree this is just silly?
Yeah, I yield my time to the chair.
Yeah, absolutely. You should. No, let's move on, because I don't like this story. We're going to go on to the Daily Star now.
Anytime you hear microbiome, you should zone out.
Vegetables. Who's got this story for Christmas dinner?
Yeah, it's my turn now. 1 in 5 Brits don't realize environmental impact their Christmas Day veggies can have. So basically, they just want us to eat insects so bad.
Is that what it is?
They just want Arabs to lose their only source of income.
That's brilliant.
And they want us to eat grasshoppers and cricket. I mean,
no, but they're saying that during the farming and distribution process, vegetables are particularly guilty of producing.
Yeah, well, life is guilty of having a carbon footprint eventually. I mean, they just want to feel us guilty in this holiday season as well. And
yeah, Grinches, that's what it is. Bar humbug, it's not good enough. Well, look, the show is almost over, but we do have time to take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. So the Daily Mail is leading with half-price Christmas. High street stores are struggling to get people to buy. Telegraph has Sadiq Khan blocks cars for Ukraine scheme. The Times is leading with rise of the month-long wait just to see your GP. The Guardian is running with a great day for truth. Prince Harry has won his hacking case against the Mirror Group to great fanfare. The Mirror has a question of sport axed. They're saying goodbye to that famous sporting show on BBC. And the Daily Star, what a spuddy outrage, which is some nonsense about Mr. Potato Head. So that's all we've got time for. Thank you ever so much to my guests, Lewis Schaefer and Nicholas DeSanto. I'm going to be back tomorrow with Lewis and Cressida. And if you're watching at 5 a.m. for the repeat, stay tuned because now it's time for breakfast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. This weekend will be a cloudy and fairly mild one for many of us, and there will be a lot of dry weather around. However, there is an amber rain warning in force for parts of northwest Scotland through much of Saturday and Sunday. That's because we'll see this string of weather fronts bringing some quite relentless rain throughout the weekend. And we'll see some of that rain throughout Friday night. It'll generally be lighter than it is going to become over the weekend, but it'll still be fairly patchy and persistent. Further south, it should stay dry through much of the night. There could be some drizzle over the high ground in the west, and in the east we could see some clear spells developing, allowing for a slightly cooler start. But elsewhere, it's likely to be a very mild start to the weekend, particularly in northern areas of Scotland. However, here it will be quite a windy and wet day throughout Saturday. We'll see the rain really start to persist into the afternoon. Further south, still staying largely dry but cloudy, and I think it will be a windier day than today out there tomorrow. And temperatures again around 11 or 12 degrees, so on the milder side of things for this time of year. In the far north of Scotland through Sunday, the rain will continue. It turns particularly heavy from Saturday night and will persist all the way through Sunday into Monday as well. So there is an amber warning in force. We could see as much as 200 millimetres of rain, which does bring a risk of landslides. That rain will sink southwards through Monday, and that will allow some cooler air to arrive from the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show, we've got former Conservative MP, author and priest Jonathan Aitken. Our resident left in the corner, although he's not in the corner tonight, is Mr. Simon Danchuk. He's back on the show for about the 10th time. We've also got human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. He's on the show for the very first time. Got Paolo Diana. It's her first time on the show as well. She is a podcast host and author. We're going to go back in the day with singer and songwriter Jonah Louie. And joining me for On the Poll is former glamour model Nicola McLean. But first, let's get the latest news headlines.
You're with GB News. I'm Sam Francis in the GB Newsroom. The headlines at 7. Prince Harry has said it's a great day for truth and accountability. That's as he was awarded more than £140,000 in damages over phone hacking claims against a tabloid newspaper group. The High Court has ruled that there was extensive phone hacking by the Mirror Group newspapers between 2006 and 2011. In response, the publisher says they apologise unreservedly for any historical wrongdoing. The judge also said journalists were involved in phone hacking at the time Piers Morgan worked for the Daily Mirror. But the former editor claims he has never hacked a phone or told anyone else to hack a phone.
As for him saying this is a good day for truth, the Duke has been repeatedly exposed in recent years as someone who wouldn't know the truth if it slapped him around his California tanned face. He demands accountability for the press, but refuses to accept any for himself for smearing the royal family, his own family, as a bunch of callous racists without producing a shred of proof to support those disgraceful claims.
1 million homes here in the UK could face significant council tax rises as more local authorities face serious gaps in their funding. Bradford, Cheshire and Middlesbrough councils have all announced that they're at risk of effective bankruptcy. It comes as a group of 6 Labour mayors called for more emergency funding. They say the government's plan to give £64 billion to councils over the next year won't cover rising costs or demand. But Rishi Sunak has said that he's put record funding into local areas like Middlesbrough over the past year.
On average, councils are having about 10% more money to spend this year than they had the year before. Actually, Middlesbrough Council has even more than that, more than the national average. And unfortunately, this is just another example of a Labour-run council that's doing a bad job for its residents, it's mismanaging its finances. And actually, that's an example of what you get when Labour are in charge.
And police have said that there's no evidence of third-party involvement after a body was found in a river during their search for a missing mother of 3. Gaynor Lord went missing in Norwich last Friday. They say that the body hasn't been formally identified, but her family have been informed. The police force say that they remain open-minded about the circumstances of her disappearance and will pursue all lines of inquiry. This is GB News. We're across the UK on your TV, in your car, digital radio and on your smart speaker. Now, though, back to Lee Anderson.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight I'm joined by former Conservative MP, Jonathan Aitken. Jonathan, thanks for coming on the show tonight. Great to see you, my friend. Look, author, priest, former Conservative MP, festive time of the year. Please explain to me how important the nativity plays are that we're going to see throughout the schools in this country at this particular time.
I think the nativity plays are important. They tell a wonderful story. The story originates in Luke's Gospel, but all these shepherds, angels, the birth of a child, wise men. It's marvellous sort of theatrical stuff, but it's also got a deep spiritual message. I wonder how many 5-year-olds actually absorb the spiritual message, but still, it's all part of the Christian faith, it's all part of the historical tradition. So I think we should encourage nativity plays.
Please tell me, Jonathan, how you get the faith, because I haven't got the faith. I class myself as an atheist. I would love to have the faith. I would love to think that there is a better place awaiting us when we leave this earth. How do you get that faith?
Well, I got it sort of by accident, and it's very difficult to explain. But first of all, the messages of faith and hope are all around us, and they're like wavelengths. Do you tune in, and do they mean something to you or not? If they do, in my case, I came to faith really through failure. I, once like you, had a good, promising political career. I was in the cabinet and so on. And then my world fell apart because of my own mistakes. Yep. Went to prison. And while in prison, I didn't sort of have any instant conversion. But I did go back to some of those old messages, like the nativity plays, and started to think and read the Bible and started to believe that maybe there was something in all this. And then I said, no, this is a foxhole conversion. I'm just in trouble. I'm just praying. But gradually, God calls, God speaks. And how he does...
When you say he speaks, Jonathan, does he just pop up on your shoulder and have a quick word, or are you imagining things? Because I want him to speak to me, and I guess there's people watching this show want God to speak to them. How does he speak to you?
Well, it's different in different cases, but a familiar way that he speaks to you is often either a time when everything's going rather wrong in your life, and maybe you're suffering from bereavement or something like that. And God is a God of compassion, and he often speaks in moments when we need compassion. And now, how does he speak? Perfectly good question, which there isn't.
Does he speak English?
Well, I think he talks in the language we understand, which may not be necessarily through linguistics. It may be through feelings. It may be through emotions. But I mean, the most astonishing time God ever spoke to me, long after I'd come out of prison, I was quite successful again as an author and all kinds of things. And suddenly I started to hear this whisper in my ear, I want you to be an ordained priest. And I said back, if it's you speaking, God, please stop talking such rubbish. I'd be a very bad priest. And then he nagged away through sort of murmurs and then changed it and said, actually, I wanted you to be a prison chaplain. Now, that actually made me wake up because...
But you know, most people, or not most people, Jonathan, I'm going to be fair here, a lot of people listening to this would say that if you're hearing things in your voices in your head, then probably should go and see somebody.
Well, they're talking rubbish because there are different kinds of voices. I mean, we all have the voices of love, for example. Why shouldn't we hear the voices of a spiritual murmur? And it's not quite similar. I mean, I wasn't sort of on the telephone to God. But I heard things sort of saying, mysterious murmurs saying, I want you to preach. I said, rubbish. Then I heard murmurs, it's sort of in the heart saying, I actually think you should be a priest.
Is it God, though, or is it just your conscience? Well, or is it the same thing?
Well, I think, well, it's a very good question. Who put conscience into us? Yeah. Nobody can answer that question.
True.
And maybe it's God. And there are all kinds of ways the voice of God is heard. I'm actually amazed now to be a prison chaplain wearing a dog collar.
Incredible.
I can't tell you how much of a surprise that is to me.
It's poacher turned gamekeeper sort of thing, isn't it? Well, if I can say that. Jesus Christ, if he was roaming the planet today and he was standing for election, would he be in the Tory party or the Labour Party?
Neither. He was clever enough when he was around to avoid political questions rather skillfully. He was asked once a complicated question about taxation, shown a coin and asked a question about tax. And he replied, famous words from the Gospels, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, render unto God the things that are God's. Meaning he wasn't going to get into the business of politics or taxation.
But what does that mean?
Well, you can perfectly well have a view without having a vote or a political voice.
Yeah.
His calling was a higher calling than the tradecraft of politics, so he wasn't going to have anything to do with it, and rightly so.
So you think he'd keep firmly away from politics?
Yes.
And what about the when he cleared the moneylenders out of the house of God? What was all that about?
Well, of course.
Because let's be honest, the church are pretty quick now on a Sunday at putting that tray out and taking in thousands of pounds every Sunday.
Well, I don't think that's money changing, but what he was objecting to was really sin. I mean, God hates sin, whatever kind it is, and the money changers in the temple were what I think might be regarded now as extremely dodgy and corrupt market traders. They were selling doves to be sacrificed or higher-priced things, and he just said, this has no place in my Father's house, the temple. So he lost his own temper for the first and only time in the Gospels and cleared them out. But he's against sin, and the sin of sort of corrupt extortion by selling things in the temple was wrong in his view.
So Christmas morning, people will be getting up, children will be getting up very, very early because they're going to be excited. And I would say, we live in a Christian country still, but probably one of the last things on people's minds, most people's minds, Jonathan, when they're getting up Christmas morning, is Christ. How can we change that?
Well, first of all, that's not necessarily true. For example, first thing on Christmas morning, what I'm doing at 9 o'clock is being in Pentonville Prison, taking the service and preaching, giving a talk. Now, I assure you, the guys who come along to that service, strange though it may seem, some of them at least, are highly receptive to a Christian message. Whatever bad things they've done, they're often deeply unhappy to be separated from their families. Some of them may have remorse, some of them may not, of course, but still, there is a place, even on early Christmas morning, for reflecting and thinking about...
We see some of these, especially the violent criminals, the horrible criminals, the ones that do long jail terms, all of a sudden they go into prison after committing these horrible crimes, sometimes come out and go back in again and commit these horrible crimes again, and then they find God. Isn't that a little bit convenient, Jonathan?
Yes.
For some of these people.
It would be if that was true. And actually, a lot of people said it, I think, about me at the time, how very convenient.
Oh, but, yeah.
So, I don't think they're still saying it some 25 years later, but maybe they are. But it doesn't matter at all, because, first of all, God knows the secrets of all our hearts. Think of the worst criminal you can imagine. Even that person, no one has fallen so low and done things so bad that they fall beneath the reach of God's grace.
Okay.
So even those people who've done...
I struggle with that one, Jonathan. We're going to leave it there for the time being, because there's been a outbreak of socialism in the room. We've got Simon Danchuk. He's going to join us in a moment for the yes or no quiz. So now it's time for the yes or no quiz. We've got Simon Danchuk, a firm favourite on this show. Welcome back, Simon. And we've got Jonathan. He's still with us. Dead easy. You know the rules. It's a yes or no answer. No slippery or evasive answers. It's got to be yes or no. So we're coming up to Christmas, gents. So the first question, Christmas Day, will you pray?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
OK, for you, Jonathan, a political question. Should we introduce PR voting?
No.
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 I like that answer. Simon, Christmas is a time when people eat a little bit too much. I'm looking at me and you. We've probably ate a little bit too much, and we're going to get fatter and unhealthier. Should we have a tax on junk food?
No.
No.
That's it. And number 4, Jonathan, have you been a good little boy this year?
Tried.
See, you slipped up.
Yes, absolutely.
So you've slipped up as well. So yes, absolutely is not a correct answer. It's got to be a yes or no. This is quite pathetic. And 5th and final question, Simon, can we get the Rwanda plan to work?
Yes.
No.
So I make that actually 4-all, so that's not bad actually. You got 4 out of 5. Well, I say it's not bad, it's actually not very good at all, because I mean the quiz is dead easy, it's yes or no.
Yes.
There's no right or wrong answers, so it's yeah. So do you want to go back on one, Jonathan? One of the questions?
Well, I guess as a vicar I better go to question 1 and say Christmas Day, wonderful day for anybody who's got a faith, to thank God for coming to this world, and to say a few prayers for those you love, those who are in trouble, those who are in need. I will do that happily and joyfully.
Will you pray for me?
Yes.
Will you pray for Simon?
Yes.
Simon.
Thank you. Well, I'll come back on number 5. The Rwanda plan has to be made to work. I mean, your government has to get it through and make it happen, you know.
So we've seen this week in the House of Commons, the vote actually went through for the the new bill. Now, my theory, if you like, or my reasoning to support the second reading was, yeah, the bill's not there in total, and we need to strengthen it, and to vote against the second reading would have just kicked it out straight away. We need to take what we've got and then go through a proper debate now and try and strengthen the bill to make sure that it does work, because there's no point at all, Simon, is there, voting for something that doesn't work?
No, absolutely, and we've been there before, but the public, the majority of the public, want this to work and want it to happen. So it's the will of the people. Parliament has sovereignty. You've got to make it happen, I think.
Is it an un-Christian thing, Jonathan, to send people to Rwanda?
No, I don't think it's un-Christian. But if I'd been still in the House of Commons, I'd have had exactly the same attitude as you just voiced. I'd have voted for second reading. I'd have tried to improve it. The reason I think it's going to have great difficulty working is because of the legal challenges which are likely still to tie it up. But I'd like to be proved wrong.
Well, there you go, gents. 4-all in the quiz. That's I think you've done better than that before, Simon.
I'll try harder.
I thought you was getting the hang of this, but a good first effort from Jonathan. Look, do not go away, because coming up after the break, we've got the award-winning songwriter and singer, Jonah Louie.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. We've got a bit of a legend in the building today, Jonah Louis. You wrote a song, Jonah, back in the day, which is still played today. Was it 40-odd years ago? This song, Stop the Cavalry. How did that come about?
How did what come about?
The song.
Well, there was a melody first, and then I thought about the lyrics, and the first thing I thought was, that came into my mind, Can You and the Gallantry would scan nicely with da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which is the last bit of a part of the song. So I had Can You and the Gallantry, so that was my starting point. And then I changed it to Can You Stop the Cavalry?
OK.
And then that led to thoughts about the Crimean War, because people, you know, were on the cavalry charging.
Yep.
And they charged to their deaths.
They did.
So I thought, oh my God, that's terrible.
Was you like astounded at the success of the record?
Oh yeah, I'm always astounded if it's successful.
Right.
But we always hope it's successful. And if it actually becomes successful, you think, crikey.
And how many copies do you think it sold around the world?
Under what banner? Under vinyl or...?
Well, that's a good point, actually, vinyl, because it was probably a 7-inch single.
Well, it virtually sold 1,045,000 RPMs in this country.
Yeah.
And about 600,000 in France, and in various other countries, you know, in terms of hundreds of thousands. Never really released in America. But, of course, you've got streaming now and all the different ways of computing these things.
I suppose a good pension fund for you.
Well, luckily something's coming in, because I don't have a pension.
So the melody is very upbeat, I think. It's an upbeat melody, it's nice, it's Christmassy, but the story is incredibly sad. How do you get those two to work together?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I suppose that the sadness comes about because you've got, you know, this poor guy in the trenches fighting his guts out, and he's you know, cold and hungry, and he's not at home in front of the coal fire on Christmas Day having Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible situation to be in. But the one ray of hope is that, you know, if he gets out of this mess and gets home and there's peace, he will decide to stand for the President of the United States of the world. And if he wins the election, he will stop the cavalry, because he's fed up of all these people with chivalrous cavalry notions of going to war, honour, you know, and all the rest of it.
So what motivated...
So although it's sad, there's a kind of a...
Yeah, I get that. There's a message there.
There's hope.
There's hope there. So what motivated you personally to write this song?
Well, it was an accident in terms of the lyric, because it just was step by step. Can You and the Gallantry led to those lyrics. It was, and apart from that, it was just a melody on a piano.
OK.
You know.
So, I mean, it's a song that's, every time it comes on the radio in the car, we all hum it, we all sing it if we can remember the words, but it reminds you of what time of year it is, because it is played normally at Christmas. But you wrote another really famous song, something about You'll Always Find Me in the Kitchen at parties. And I think that came out when I was at school. And what inspired you to write that? Because there always is that person that's in the kitchen at parties, isn't there?
Yeah, the idea behind that really is that, you know, you go into the kitchen to get some more wine or to have a natter in the kitchen. There's all the people in the party.
Yeah.
and then you go back out to the dining room and where you're going to have a dance and try again to meet someone.
So I guess I mean some people might just hang around the kitchen because they're not comfortable in the party.
Exactly.
You want to be there and be seen, but not actually in the party dancing and getting drunk and all that stuff.
And the idea of you always finding the kitchen at parties is that you're a bit of a loser. You know, you're not getting the woman.
Getting the woman. Or the man.
Or the men in turn. But now that it's legal, you can do that with men too, can't you?
Yes, well you can. Yeah, that's been a long time actually. Musical heroes, Jonah. Who, when you was a kid growing up, there must have been somebody who made you learn music and sing and write songs. Who was it?
Top 4: Elvis Presley, Fats Domino, Little Richard, and Chuck Berry.
Well, listen. I mean, they're 4 of my favourites. I mean, I couldn't swap any of them. I'd like to see Jerry Lee Lewis in there somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
Roy Orbison.
Yeah, great singer.
Everly Brothers.
Oh,
they were brilliant.
Bird Dog and
I mean,
Wake
great
Up Little Susie.
Harmonies. Because see the Beatles, and you'll know.
And great harmonies, and you can't help but love the Beatles and the Stones. You know, don't get me wrong.
But the Beatles would have copied Chuck Berry. They copied the Everly Brothers, Roy Orbison.
Yeah.
And mixed it all together.
Before Elvis, there was nothing. John Lennon said.
He did say that, and I think Elvis was actually one of my favourites. He was the one. He didn't write songs. He wasn't particularly good on the guitar. He could play guitar, but he could take any song and own it.
He started it. He was out front. He was the first one to be a punk, if you like. You know, he was a rebel.
He was a rebel, wasn't he? I suppose more of a rebel than the Sex Pistols in the 70s.
Yeah, ironically, 21 years afterwards, the Sex Pistols arrived.
Yeah.
And they booed when they heard that Elvis Presley had died. And then sniffing glue guy, Mark Perry, got up on stage and said, "Hey, guys, you got it wrong. He was one of us."
He was just 20 years earlier. Now, I mean, you talk about the Sex Pistols, that's sort of not my era. I was probably about 13 when the Sex Pistols come out in the late 70s, and then there was the film, the Great Rock and Roll Swindle, and it was a swindle, weren't it? It was.
Bambi or something.
Who Killed Bambi?
Yeah.
And there was I think the worst thing the BBC did was, I don't know if it's worse or not, but they banned the song that the Sex Pistols wrote. I think it was it God Save the Queen?
Almost did them a favour.
It did, yeah.
So increased the notoriety, didn't it?
So present day, Jonah, you're a music man. What are you doing with your life musically at the moment?
Well, I've been working in the studio for some years as a hobby, really.
Yeah.
And I've got enough for an album, and it's coming out in the end of January, I think it is. I had to ask the people, so that's coming out, and so that's what I'm doing.
So how do people get hold of that album? Because it's all different now, isn't it? You don't go into a record shop anymore.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally different. I don't understand the business at all. You have to ask them how it works.
So when we were kids, we used to go in the record shop on a weekend, on a Saturday morning maybe.
Yeah.
And just rifle through all the LPs and the singles, and then see one, save up for it, go and buy it. But now they've all
now
gone.
It's sort of Spotify, I suppose.
What's all that about?
You dial it up so much easier and quicker than putting it on the turntable.
Yep.
So it's advantages and disadvantages.
It is. Look, I mean, this is absolutely brilliant, mate. That song, that Christmas song, has probably been listened to by millions and millions of people around the world. It's I will definitely listen to it in a slightly different light now next time it comes on my radio. But it's been great to meet you. Thanks.
Nice to speak to you.
Look, do not go away. Coming up next, we've got Simon Danchuk, we've got Paula Diana, and we've got Peter Tatchell. They're going to have a good debate on the trans issue.